Joe, that leaves us here to wrap up on the weekly hot take segment. Keyboard Warriors, brought to you by our incredible friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. Again, folks, make sure that whether you're pre-gaming, post-gaming in the tap room, or going to games at the X and hitting up all of their offerings, whether that's the Crowler of the Day at Section 105 or on every level, their drafts of Raindrops. So we've got here 3 hot takes. One of them actually got deleted, apparently, off of the Twitter/X. So I won't say who said it, but it's one that could have gone either way, if I'm being honest. It was the timing for me that was more hot takey. After the Vegas loss, which you got to cover up close and personal, someone said that they posted the Wild's record against West playoff teams, and it wasn't a good one, but said like, this is a huge problem, basically. Where do you land on the concerns with stacking the West?
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate thought of like you have to play these guys at some point and beat them. I think I've talked to people before, and like obviously it's important in the standings, important in points, but people look at this in different ways in terms of the timing of these games, who's healthy in these times. Like the game versus Edmonton tomorrow, like this will be a playoff team. If they lose that game, they still have no Kirill, no Spurgeon, Brodin, Faber. Like, that loss doesn't really mean as much, or at least if I'm measuring them up against these other teams.
Yeah.
They're like, well, they played Winnipeg multiple times at the back end of a back-to-back, right? Like, so, but still, it's one thing to be like 6-7-1 or like 6-5 or like whatever. It's like 3-9-1, I believe, is the record against the Western Conference playoff teams. The Dallas game was terrific on the road that I covered out of the Christmas break. Like they showed they're capable of winning on the road against that team. They did it in the playoffs 2 years ago. I think Russo's joke was like, if they get to the final, they'll sweep it because they beat every Eastern Conference powerhouse like Washington, Carolina, Florida, Tampa. So they'll sweep the Cup final. They just have to get there first, you know? Yeah. But I think there's a legitimate thing, which is why I gave the team a B+, controversially, in the midseason grades.
Yeah, hot take.
Granted, that was the grades were put in before the Carolina Washington road trip. They had lost 5 of 8. They were struggling against the Western Conference. Like, you know, again, I'm a fair grader. I'm not a harsh grader. I'm just saying like B+ to me is a really good grade. And it doesn't take away from how impressive the season's been and compared to expectations for what the start of the year would be. But yeah, I don't think it's something that they need to get in their heads about losing those teams, because they're all individual games based on matchups and injuries and who's healthy and who's not. Yeah. But eventually they're going to have to beat them. But eventually they have to beat multiple to get out of the Central Division. You'll play Winnipeg or Dallas the first game, and maybe you'll have to play the first series, and maybe you'll have to play Colorado. So clearly I don't think they're worried about it in that stage, but I think it'd be important down the stretch to win some of these games, like maybe in Denver on Monday with a more healthy team.
Yeah, no, that was it for me. Like a month ago, I would have 100% like agreed, reinforced the statement. It's just the timing of it where like the team is so decimated for that Vegas game specifically. And then you look at the back-to-backs, who's healthy, whatever, like you said, that's where it was very like knee-jerk hot takey to me. But like the sentiment as fans I get, and I'm sure the players think about it a little bit too. So all fair. Hot take number 2. This one, Joe, you can be as delicate or not delicate as you want on this. There was a article written on Hockey Wilderness. There was a screenshot that ended up going around Twitter, and fans are getting pretty upset. Proposed trade between the Wild and the Sabres. Matt Boldy, Hunter Haight, Marat Khusnutdinov, all packaged for Tuch, Quinn, and a 2025 third.
I mean, I love Tuch. Like Tuch's, a great player and a guy that, the Wild know pretty well. I just don't see in really many other circumstances them trading Matt Boldy. I just don't see it. And obviously that package seems a little lopsided too, but
Yeah,
I think
you got to throw in a Boyum or a Faber to really make it fair for the Sabres.
Oh yeah, we'll give it Kirill, maybe Kirill, throw him in there as well.
Yeah.
And then a ton of Hockey Day Minnesota sweatshirts or something like that. Let's
Ooh,
spin the pot.
that would play.
But yeah, these playing the GM in these trades. I've done them every year of who says no to stuff like that. I think the Wild would not do that trade.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty quick hang up the phone for Bill Guerin. Last one here, and this is an interesting one that I just came across this morning, Joe. Jesse Marshall, colleague of yours over at The Athletic, covering Pittsburgh Penguins, says that the NHL is killing content creators. A little bit of detail on that. Apparently, the NHL has taken efforts to manually go back through the backlogs of anyone who creates content on YouTube using NHL footage. They're demonetizing them, which, fine, that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also getting copyright claims up to basically stop people from doing it anymore. They're trying to remove this old content. And I understand why the NHL protects its content. Sure, it makes sense on the surface, but the NFL does not do this. The NBA does not do this. The MLB does not do this. And it's tough for, and I know for Jesse Marshall in particular, he does a lot of work with talking about systems and actually using video to reinforce things that he's seeing on the ice. It's already hard enough for some fans to pick up some of those concepts. But now if we're going to remove this and completely gatekeep, you're just limiting further growth and expansion of fans and getting people more integrated with the league. Where do you stand on this? Should the NHL make their content available to be used in those types of ways, or is it something where no, they should be gatekeeping it for monetary, financial, whatever reasons?
Well, in one instance, I get that the rights holders pay tons and tons of money, to have exclusive rights to the footage and game footage and whatever else. And so I get from that instance some sort of copyright, but I also know that the league needs to grow the game and they need to get more fans. And some fans will watch more on YouTube than have a FanDuel subscription, right? Not everybody has cable or has access to it or whatever. But if I have my phone and I'm younger and I want to watch clips of this, or listen to a podcast or whatever, I would want to try to find a sweet spot of not carte blanche, just giving access away to everything or saying it's okay to just, pirate all these stuff and steal it. But there's got to be ways to, integrate into social media, into YouTube, and different kind of channels to attract different kind of fans or attract new fans, or just keep fans. So there's got to be a balance. I don't know where legal balance is, but they got to be a little more open-minded with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and you're totally right. Rights holders thing, that is a big issue, and I'm sure the main reason that this is happening. But like you said, a middle ground somewhere, whether there's, maybe there's preferred partners or people that get further licensing from those rights holders or directly from the NHL and have some kind of way to get it out there, or partnering with those rights holders to generate the content that's going to help grow the game and get highlights out for fans. It's just, it does seem weird for clearly number 4 on that list of the 4 big leagues to be stubborn and prohibit expansion. But again, definitely not a simple solution. I don't even know for sure the best way to approach it, but there's got to be a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we'll find it someday. But that rounds out then the hot takes for this week, Joe, unless I don't know if there's anything you had top of mind or anything you've seen that just kind of threw you back.
No hot takes for me. I know we had a kind of a hot button issue we wrote about in the Insider, Weekly Wild Insider and The Athletic, me and Mike Russo did. As you know, the Wild will play in Nashville this weekend. First time to play them since the Spurgeon New Year's Eve slew foot by Zach LaRue. You're just talking to players about it, and they were obviously upset it was more a 3-game suspension and this and that. Even Marcus Foligno told us that And obviously there'll be a price to pay at some point there for it, whether it's him or somebody else on Saturday. But just the idea of these suspensions and fines being lenient by the player safety program, and I've had players and former players telling me it's all in the CBA, and so it's all collectively bargained. So if the players really want to have more penalties for their teammates getting really hurt, then they can go to the table in the CBA negotiations this year and fight for it. I don't know if they will or not. They haven't yet, but it seems like it happens all the time. There are people complain about a player being injured, and rightfully so. That was a dirty hit by a guy who's had a history. But to change it, like, it's all the reason why the fine's $5,000 is because it's collective. It's a maximum they can do, or 50% of the daily salary. So there's got to be a sweet spot where you have to hit him where it hurts. And a lot of times that's not getting in a fight. A lot of times that's not a suspension. Time that's give him like a $75,000 fine for a knee or for like a hit to the head, you know? So
yeah. And I mean, to that end too, I think the other thing that should be considered on that front is what happened with Dallas coming out of the Christmas break. Like, a $100,000 fine to the organization doesn't do anything to prohibit it. If anything, it basically invites and says, oh yeah, you can just do this, and there's no real punishment. Do you think bigger monetary fine would be the solution, or is it better to shift that monetary punishment to, say, the coach? Because him sacrificing, 50 to 100,000 for that practice, he's not going to hold that practice anymore.
No, you're right, and I'm sure the organization would pay that for him, But yeah, I think it would hit you where it hurts, and where a guy who's been in the league 20 years like Pete DeBoer he already knows the rules, like it's not like he's a new guy. Mm-hmm. So I think there's whether people will agree for this to happen or not remains to be seen. But that's the only way I think you're going to get some of these things out of the game is if a guy will lose money because he'll be suspended, so he'll lose those game checks, right? So it will hit them more than just like this, but the little fines that they do without suspensions, like $5,000, that's like money on the board, that's whatever,
if that.